If you are trying to heal trauma, if you know that you have trauma to heal from childhood or at any point in your life, I want to talk to you. I am seeing a lot of trends out there in the world, and honestly, they've been there for a really long time, but they're gaining momentum and loudness in the narrative. And honestly, every time I encounter this narrative about how to heal trauma, I feel like really frustrated for myself. Well, really not for me now, but for my younger self. I feel frustrated on behalf of my younger self, who it will become clear in this video. I'm going to explain why that would be frustrating to my younger self, but I also feel deeply frustrated for anyone else out there healing trauma right now who's currently dealing with trauma in their body, in their mind, body space, and looking for healing and looking for answers. Because what I'm about to share with you, no one told me. No one shared with me what I'm about to share with you. No one gave me the permission slip I want to hand you in case you resemble my younger self. And this narrative that's out there, mostly in the world of trauma healing and therapy, psychotherapy, somatic healing, those types of communities, anyone kind of talking about nervous system healing and healing trauma at the nervous system level. I'm not going to name names, it doesn't feel important, but it is the common narrative, is that trauma must be approached with extreme caution. We must tread very carefully. It is dangerous to do things in the wrong order. In order to heal trauma, you need to understand your nervous system and the science of your nervous system. In order to heal trauma, you have to work with a trained, qualified, licensed therapist who has the proper training to go there with you. This is the common narrative that I'm hearing out there, and honestly, I think it's bullshit. So sorry for the strong language, sorry not sorry, but I absolutely think it's bullshit. I think it's bullshit because it cannot possibly be a true blanket statement about every traumatized person and every person's needs. So I want to just be clear right off the bat here that my perspective is we're all on a personal journey and we all have our own timing. And some people, like my younger self, were raring to go and ready and would have gone all the way into it with someone who was willing to go there with me right away, all the way. Screw the long, the long path. I want to get this fucking over with. So I feel really passionate about this because I became, I think, more traumatized by consistently encountering people who couldn't go there with me than I actually was by my original trauma. So let me explain. This narrative that we have to use kid gloves and be very careful, and like if you are traumatized, I gotta approach with a lot of caution and like be careful not to trigger you and basically treat you like you're fragile, will make you feel like you're fragile and defective and really, really, really traumatized. So anytime I encountered somebody who I, maybe tried to enroll to help me heal my trauma, and some of the language that I would use is, I'm really traumatized, but I want to move fast. Like, I'm ready to do this, let's do it. And they would always say to me, whoa, like trauma has to be done carefully. We have to start, slow. We can't go there too quickly or we could really mess you up, right? Maybe those weren't the exact words they used, but that was the message that was delivered. And every time this happened to me, I felt like, holy shit, like there must be something so wrong with me that like no one can help me because I feel like I could do this quick and fast because I'm willing to feel a lot of intensity and I'm not actually that afraid of my feelings, but it sure seems like you are. So here's what I've learned. I believe there are really only two qualifying characteristics that we should look for in somebody we're asking to help us heal trauma. And it doesn't involve a piece of paper. It doesn't involve training. It doesn't involve education and science about the nervous system. These two things you might be able to find in a friend, in a lover, in a partner, in a marriage, in a community of other people, and in yourself. So, and ideally, maybe in all those things. And maybe in a therapist, maybe in a professional. So I want to be like really careful here that what I'm sharing with you today is not medical advice. It's not psychology advice. I am not telling you what to do or what you're ready for, or what you're not ready for. What I want to share is my perspective. What I want to share is my experience as a very, very, very traumatized person who went through really severe trauma. My experience was that what I had been through was so shocking and so intense that most people I asked to help me heal couldn't handle it. Like they were actually the ones unable to go there, not me. So this is what I've learned since then. I didn't really have words for it a long time ago. And ultimately I had to heal myself because I wasn't finding anyone who was able to go there with me to the level and as fast as I believed I could go and was determined to go. Because I gotta tell you, for me, I felt like in my early 20s, if I didn't move quickly, I would spend my entire life healing trauma. And what kind of life was I gonna live if I spent my entire life healing trauma? Like, what's the point? I might as well kill myself. And I know that sounds, dramatic, and I'm not like, I want to just use brevity here. Like, I want to be able to be just brutally honest with you about the thoughts I was thinking. That is what I thought. Like, if I have to do this so slowly, like they're telling me, I'm going to take the rest of my life, because I have a lot of trauma to heal and I believe I can do it faster, but nobody's telling me that I can. So I had to actually listen to myself. I had to actually trust that voice inside myself saying, you can heal and you can do it faster than they're telling you. So that's ultimately where I'm going with this, is around self-trust. But these two qualifying characteristics that I want to talk about are, if let's say you're stepping in my office and, let's take trauma out of the picture for a sec, because I work mostly with people in physical pain. But I'm going to circle back around to something important about the physical body in just a second. So you step in my office with debilitating back pain, you're bent in half, you can't even stand up, and you're in an extreme situation. If that freaks me out, if the level of pain you're in freaks me out, I'm going to be unable to help you, because you're probably not going to feel very safe. You're going to feel judged, or you're going to feel like you have to take care of me because I'm freaking out over here. And this is ultimately what I encountered every time I tried to get help in a therapeutic setting. So I just want to be clear that talk therapy never worked for me. It was moderately helpful at best, but other things that I tried were way, way, way more effective at actually healing my trauma than talk therapy. Because every time I tried to talk about my trauma to somebody listening, I could tell I was freaking them the fuck out. And then I was now put in a role that actually traumatized me to begin with, of parenting the therapist. I had to parent my parents, specifically my mom, in a lot of ways. And I think she would even be, if she were standing here next to me, she would say that's probably true. She told me all through, my childhood that she felt like I was the mom and she was the child. So if I'm having to take care of a therapist because they're freaked out about the story I'm telling, you've just put me in literally the exact same trauma pattern as I'm trying to heal right now with you, and that's not going to work. So if I haven't dealt with my own pain, if I haven't dealt with what's inside of me and gone there, your pain's going to terrify me. So that is the number one qualifying characteristic, in my opinion, of somebody worthy of working with people in pain or traumatized people. And, if they're aware that they haven't done that work, or they're aware to the degree to which they have and haven't, then it would be actually really nice if somebody told me, Alicia, I don't feel qualified to help you because I haven't experienced the degree of pain you have, and it's kind of freaking me out. Like, no one was brave enough to actually tell me that. They just kept taking my money and putting me in the chair and letting me talk and not naming that they were kind of like, ooh. And so how could I tell? Well, this brings us back to, if you're walking in my office with physical pain. So let's talk about body workers for a second, and body work, and doctors and anyone who works with a body. You are working with that person's entire history, whether you agree to do that or not. So anybody who works with bodies is working with trauma, whether they've been licensed to do so or not. When you touch someone's body, you touch their nervous system. You contact, their threat detection system. You're contacting everything that's in here. So I just want to say that, like, there are potential, like, triggers and dangerous scenarios all over the place. It's everywhere. Like, I have been re-traumatized or irritated or triggered or felt unmet by naturopaths, by doctors, by functional medicine doctors, by MDs, by the person in the urgent care clinic, by therapists, by trained somatic psychotherapists, and the people that were supposedly the most qualified to help me often weren't. Whereas the people who ended up helping me the most were my friends. So I've had friendships that were big enough to hold my pain, so I could share what was coming up for me emotionally and bawl my eyes out and be embraced by a friend who let me just be in pain, and it didn't freak them out. And that helped me heal my trauma. So number one qualifying characteristic, they need to be okay with pain. And how are you okay with pain? You have to be okay with your own. If you're not okay with your own pain, someone else's pain is really going to freak you out. The number two qualifying characteristic, in my opinion, is non-attachment to timelines, outcomes, stories being told, judgments. It has to be an objective space in which to share what's there. And because if you, for example, are attached to me doing it slow, because that was your training, and you were trained by somebody who made sure to drill it into your mind that trauma healing has to be strategic, and it has to be slow, and it has to go a certain pace, otherwise you're endangering your patient or client, that's an attachment right there. So if I walk in your office and I feel that you are attached to going slow and I want to go fast, we have a real problem. I'm not going to feel safe. On the other hand, if you are attached to me going fast and I want to go slow, we're going to have a problem. So what I'm trying to say here is that it really needs to be about me, not you. If you're the person I'm paying to help me, we have to go at my pace, not yours. And I get really irritated at this narrative being perpetuated out there, because I just honestly believe it is doing a massive disservice to people who are traumatized and looking to heal, because it is, again, perpetuating the narrative that there is something really wrong with you, and the only qualified people to help you are those who have, studied the nervous system and studied trauma and really know what they're doing so they can tread carefully. Here's the thing. If you trust yourself to feel what you feel fully and trust that you won't die if you feel it, you can heal anything right now. That is what healing is about when it comes to trauma. We often feel like if we feel what's percolating up that we've suppressed, that's been denied, that's been maybe we've dissociated from, often there is a bodily sensation that if we let it out, we're going to die. So if you are aware of that and you're able to be those two characteristics I just talked about for yourself and say to yourself, it's okay to feel everything you're feeling right now. You're not going to die. And hold that space for yourself. You can heal your own trauma. What I mostly want to get across to you so bad, like I want to be a voice. I don't want to be the voice. Like, my God, I hope other people out there are saying something similar to me. It's just I don't often hear it, so that's why I'm saying all of this with the passion that I have. Is I want to say to you, you are not going to die. You are so much more capable than you've been led to believe. You are not as fragile as the world wants you to believe. And I believe the only thing you've been waiting for is somebody to tell you that. I believe we all yearn for somebody strong enough and big enough and brave enough to hold space for our pain so that we can let it out, unburden ourselves without freaking someone else out. That's it. I honestly think that's it. I think, what is true, what is very, very true, is that if I begin unburdening my trauma and having a really emotional experience that is starting to freak you out, and you're the therapist, I'm not going to feel safe, and I might feel like I'm going to die. Why? Because my trauma was created in a situation where what I was feeling was not safe. So to me, that's it. That is it. That is it. And I really, to God, wish the therapy community and those working with trauma would admit that it's the trauma therapist's own relationship to pain and the degree to which they've gone there themselves and the degree to which pain freaks them out that creates the danger. It's not the traumatized person's problem. It really isn't. Because if they weren't afraid of it, they could hold space for you to do it really quickly, to just let it flood out, because sometimes it wants to come out in a flood. But if it's going to freak them out, then no one's holding space. And yes, it can feel dangerous. So I want to be clear about that. But in my opinion, that responsibility should rest with the therapists. And I'm really honestly just sick and tired of the traumatized people getting blamed in a way. I know it's not intentional or malicious, and I know ultimately they have good intentions to help people heal, but unless we change this narrative and actually say, you know what? Yeah, you might be traumatized, but you're fucking strong. Like, you're capable of unburdening this, like yourself and not dying. Like, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. Whatever it is you have to feel in front of me is not going to freak me out. I will not run away. I'm going to stay right here with you the entire time. That's it. So I felt the urge to come on here on YouTube and share this with you because I just keep seeing people perpetuate this narrative, and some of those people are in a similar field as me, working with the body or working with the nervous system or fascia or whatever. And I just can't keep silent about it anymore. And I'm not necessarily looking to become a voice for healing trauma in a professional capacity. That's not what I've been trained to do, other than I've looked at my own trauma. I've confronted it all. I have felt it all. It didn't kill me. And I know what I'm capable of, and I trust myself. So I think it also comes back to self-trust. Like, do you actually trust yourself to feel what you feel and not die? So I know I'm being like super repetitive with this, but I think it's important to keep repeating this, because we've been kind of hypnotized to believe something that I think is not true. Now, we all have our own timing, like I said, and some people might need to do it slower. And that's totally okay. But I think those of you that maybe are watching this that feel similar to me might be equally frustrated as I was when I was looking for help to heal, because you keep bumping into people who are telling you you're fragile, you have to be really careful, you have to do it strategically, but then they make you pay for the strategy, and then maybe you try the strategy they're outlining, but it doesn't really work for you, so then you feel defective. And I want to be really clear that there's another way. As a traumatized person myself who healed it on my own because I couldn't find the help I needed in the therapy world. I just wasn't finding it. And, you know, I guess partly I had to go through what I went through, and the manner in which I found freedom maybe to share this message that I believe we can heal our own trauma. Like, you're going to hear that narrative out there too. And my God, it makes me want to, like, honestly, like, it makes me want to scream. There are people out there saying, don't heal your trauma alone. Be very careful. You know, you need to work with someone qualified. Who is better qualified than you? You've been through it. You know your deepest pains. And if you can't do it, who can? And you're strong enough, you're capable enough, you're amazing, you are built for this. I believe we are built for this. We are built for feeling a lot and not dying. That is what a human being is in a lot of ways. So to me, this is like a birthright we're being denied. And we're being shoved into this tiny box. And then, you know, it's a glass cage and we're told it's fragile and we got to be careful. So, a lot of passion here. I hope it's resonating. I don't want to say that I'm qualified to give you a permission slip, but I just want to say, like, if you have been waiting for somebody to turn this light on or give you this permission slip, it's here. But please, please realize that this is what I'm saying is you have to make yourself responsible and accountable and trust yourself and be the one to help yourself, right? So you have to then tune in and understand what your timing is and give yourself grace and not push past your edge. So all of that is important and it's in the mix. And I think what I want to leave you with here is actually a question. So I'd love for you to share in the comments below if you want me to share more on this topic and how I've healed my trauma, and how to create this level of self-trust and how to be with really big feelings without dying, you know? And not literally, right? We all know cognitively we're not going to die, but there is this nervous system response that happens that does try to convince us we're going to die. And that, I think, is what often therapists point to say, oh, it's really dangerous, you can't go there. But in my opinion, we need to actually feel that feeling and then find out that, in fact, that our body was lying. We weren't going to die, or we're not going to die now. Maybe we actually were before, but we're not now. Like, we're safe now. So yeah, please just share your comments below. Any comments on the actual content I shared, but also, would you like to hear more from me on this topic? And if so, like what? I welcome really specific questions. I would love for your questions to actually inform future videos that I make, because while I'm not trained in this area, again, professionally, I have had deep personal experience healing trauma. And I also know how much my trauma impacted my body. And I'm also really aware that every time a client walks in my door with, say, plantar fasciitis or knee pain or back pain, there could also be trauma in the room. And I'm not going to just pretend that that's not happening and only work with their body and then just ignore, you know, the possibility that I'm re-traumatizing them or that the experience we're having together is triggering something. Like, I'm trying to pay attention to that, honor that, and not be delusional that it's not in the room. Because honestly, I think we're so delusional in this modern era of divorcing what is emotional and psychological from what is physical, and then licensing these two separate things away from each other, and then pretending that body workers don't work with trauma, and psychotherapists don't work with the body. They're all, if you have someone sitting in a chair talking about trauma, you're working with a body. If you are touching a body, you're working with a trauma. So I know I'm like continuing to go on these tangents. I just feel really strongly about this. So thank you for watching. This was meant to be helpful for those of you looking to heal trauma. I hope it was. And obviously, if my narrative doesn't fit for you, please don't adopt it. But if it does, and it's the first time you've heard this, then I really hope it's maybe what you've been waiting to hear to do the work that you know you're capable of doing. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.